Hello, this is Stuart Roberts, founder of Haircuts for Homeless, and welcome to the Hear Me, See Me podcast. I'm going to be talking to people who are truly inspirational to me. Some you may have heard of, and some you haven't, but you really need to hear their story. Hello, this is Stuart from Hear Me, See Me podcast. Today, for my special 100th edition of Hear Me, See Me podcast, I've got a very special guest, someone I've only met recently, but we're sort of kindred spirits, and I really did, feel like I'd known her forever. We met at my good friend and our good friend's wedding, Lena Headey, who's pictured behind me. There she is. A lovely, that's why I said we can swear as much as we want, because I've had Lena on and she swears like a sailor. Today I'm talking to the beautiful, wonderful, talented actress, director, Jordana Spiro. How are you today?
Hello, how are you?
That's like a Bruce Buffer introduction.
I like that description. I felt that way too. I actually felt like there were a few people, there was something about that wedding, that gathering of people, the way Mark and Lena are, that you just felt like there was a bunch of people there that you've known forever, right? Like there was something. It's just, I guess, it's the people they draw around them. It was so beautiful. Yeah,
it would. I mean, I know it's out there now that I mean, she's not that type of person who wants everyone to the world to know her stuff. It was all low key, personal. But it's my beautiful, and I say that, and my daughter got married this year. And I'll come
Can't you just say it was the second?
Yeah, and I'll come up the most beautiful wedding I've ever seen. And then my daughter's going, "You sure, Dad?" but it was, wasn't it? It's the most magical experience I think I've ever seen. And it was, like as you say, everyone gelled, and the weather, the beautiful. I've never been to a place like it.
I've never been to a place like that. I mean, you stepped into, Godfather 2, except for the killing part. There wasn't any killing at their wedding, so that was good. But yeah, you stepped into this kind of other world of painting. You stepped into a painting. Yeah. It wasn't just that, right? It really was like the collection of people that they brought together.
Yeah,
it was a real testament to how they are.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, definitely. And I'm a big film and TV buff, so I found it really interesting to me, and to so many people I'd seen and recognised, and everyone proved to be lovely people. And my wife is not too much into all that stuff, but she was so over the moon to see Rick Astley and to hear him sing. I
got to swim with him.
Yeah.
Oh, because you guys had to leave the day of the...
Yeah, we left we missed the beach day.
Yeah.
Which is a shame for you guys, because I would have been there with my Speedos, and, I probably would have made everyone feel, all the men feel bad about themselves once they saw me promenading in my Speedos. But, it weren't to be. But that's a pleasure for another day. But
you missed that slow-mo moment.
Yeah, I could have done it, couldn't I? I could have done that down the beach.
It was really cold.
Was it?
Cold. Yeah.
Yeah. Well,
so now I get to have that picture of you in your.
Yeah. Can you not do that when you're talking about how cold it is, Steve? Can you not have that because things are bad enough. I wouldn't have needed that at all. So like we had this wonderful meeting, and we've kept in touch, and your family are wonderful, and I've got a real thing for your daughter. She just cracks me up. We've had a thing because we both had a wobbly tooth. So tell me. Let's go back to you. So let's go back and tell me where you grew up and what got you into acting.
I grew up in Manhattan, one of 5 kids. And it's a funny thing. I don't have that. I knew I wanted to be an actress. I loved movies. It's a funny thing. We talk now about kids needing to see themselves in roles, right? little girls needing to see themselves out in the world doing certain jobs. I think we had Penny Marshall. Like I don't think it never dawned on me to be a director. It just I didn't see it. It wasn't in front of me. It just didn't dawn on me. So movies I only identified as being an actress. And also my dad. So my dad was born in 1926. So we watched a lot of older movies together. And he loved, one of his favorite movies was this movie called Never on Sunday with Melina McCurry. It's a Jules Dassin film. And I loved it with him. And it was like our thing. Because with 5 kids, he had a beautiful way of like doing something special with each kid and making each kid feel like they have their own thing. And so watching movies, I thought was kind of my thing with him. And she was this incredible presence. I believe she was the ambassador to Greece and cultural ambassador to Greece or something. I don't know. Anyway, she was just this kind of remarkable goddess, strong female presence. And so I think I wanted to be her. Because I was actually shy. So I didn't want to be in the school plays or anything, because that was terrifying. So I would take like acting classes kind of like outside of school in secret. Because I was shy and it felt like my little secret thing. Yeah, so that's kind of how I got to acting. I think was the shared thing, the shared love between my dad and I. Yeah, that's kind of how that started. And then I didn't start like auditioning or making it professional until I was 18, because my parents didn't want like a creepy kid actor.
Right.
Yeah. Like they didn't want
Shirley Temple.
Yeah, they didn't want like they just didn't think it was good for a kid to have that, if you were to in fact like strike some kind of gold, even if you were lucky and got that seemed to kind of, they had a sense that seems to mess people up most of the time.
Yeah. History's proved it, hasn't it? So many of them suffer as they get older. Yeah, yeah.
So, and also they were like, they were like, one time they're like, we don't want you to do anything that like you can't top what you did at like 10.
Yeah.
So they didn't want me to have like, well, it's all downhill from here kind of a moment. But yeah, so it wasn't until I was 18 that I was like, all right, I need an agent. I need to put myself out there. I need to get jobs.
Yeah. What was your first breakthrough? What's your first role?
So my first role was, so my parents weren't, they didn't push college on me. No. So I didn't go to college. So I went straight out to LA to start to get an agent and start acting.
Right.
My very first job I got kind of quickly because I was 18 but could play younger.
Right.
So there's like this little sweet spot, where you can like work as an adult but be hired as to act and actually look like a kid.
Actually, not like in Greece when they always like 35-year-olds drink as high school kids.
From Beverly Hills 90210. You remember that? They were like 40 and they're like, I got my period. Yeah. So my first job was a sitcom called Maybe This Time. This is my very first job. I was a guest star on the sitcom called Maybe This Time with Betty White.
Really? Betty White?
Betty White.
Oh,
I got to work with Betty White as my first job. And Dane Cook.
Right, I don't know them. No.
He's a stand-up comedian. And Oh my God, all of a sudden I'm blanking on his name. Irish guy, had a show, Craig Fergus. What's his name? I feel like an idiot. He had like a big show, and he made a movie where Brenda Blethyn was like selling weed. Great movie. Oh shoot!
Don't look at me. I don't remember yesterday.
Anyway, it was great. It was a great first show.
Yeah.
Great first show. It was like a week long.
Yeah.
I did have that one experience though on that show where like you learn on a TV set really quickly that like on a movie set, you take your direction from the director.
Yeah.
And that's it. It's very clear. On a TV set, well, the directors rotate through. So the writers and the producers actually have more have more consistency and more flow, like more say in terms of the consistency of the show because they're there episode in, episode out. So it was a confusing moment to me where it was like I remember I had the director say like, "Hey, listen, could you do like 19% of like that whatever thing that you're doing?" And I was like, "Okay, cool. Not sure what 19% means, but I guess it means a lot less." But then the producer / writer kind of took me to the side and was like, "We love it." I just say like double down on what you're doing. Like just go for it. And I was like 200%. And I was like, I'm so confused. I'm so confused. I did it the same. And they were both like, that was great.
Yeah. Oh, she's so good at taking instruction on.
Yeah. I remember that being like, okay, I'm getting how it works. But yeah, no, it was actually a really nice first job.
Yeah. What interests me, going back to that, you said that you was very shy.
Yeah.
And you didn't want to do the local school play. But I find, a lot of performers I've met seem very shy. It's an odd thing, isn't it? And it's that sort of the mask that they have to put on. Yeah.
Well, like this, like even what we're doing right now is as difficult for me.
Yeah.
Because I mean what is fun about it is to put on something else because you're shy.
Yeah.
And also, for me, theater was always a little too intimidating. Like I've never done a play.
No.
I've done like workshops or staged readings, things like that. I can do something if it's in service to a friend's script, then I really have fun with it.
Yeah.
But to just go out there and do like a run of a play, maybe I would love it, but I don't know because I've always been a little too intimidated. Whereas on a film set, it's just a more intimate environment.
I can imagine that. You just got crew.
Yeah.
I mean, the theater,
it really matters when the crew gives like their good energy at you. But most of the time the crew's, they're working 16-hour days every single day, day in and day out. So they're just trying to get their day done. But it is just, it's a small, you're catching little moments, right? You're like, we're just getting this little snippet of this scene on this camera angle. And it's just about you and the very few people that are in that room in that moment. So it's a very different experience.
I mean, I've had a tiny experience of it I was on the national TV, the National Lottery TV advert in 2019. And the advert was a minute long. And it took 2 full days with a massive crew of shooting.
Right.
I was blown away. I couldn't believe the amount of work, just for this minute. They must have had hours and hours of film. They had a big film crew rocked up, a catering crew, a lighting crew, and I thought, I'm just cutting a homeless person's out. I What's all this about?
Somebody cut it again.
Yeah, it was like, but it was it's a fantastic advert. It's a beautiful bit of film. But
is that what I got to see, by the way?
No, that was done by Simon Emmett for Beauty Papers magazine, and they were doing that. I think he got about a 20-minute documentary going, but the thing I showed you was just a little 1-minute promo that they did. But that was beautifully artistically filmed. Yeah, and that was at the lovely Whitechapel Mission in London, who have since can't have us back there. But I did 6 years there, and got to love the people, because I've been doing it 8 years next week, I think. And,
really?
And but so 6 years there, but the pandemic finished us because they took the time to redo the place, and the office where we used to cut hair, they made into an office for 2 people, and you couldn't move the furniture around, and they couldn't have us. But I've got to really know those guys, the ones who were in that was where that was filmed, and so people like Pippa, who you saw images of, and Zyron and that, I've not seen since. It's a shame.
What was that communication like? Because I imagine, as you and I have talked about, Ness, it's so obvious when you take a minute to think about the work that you do. It's so much more than a haircut. Mm. It's such it's profound, right? What you're giving that person in that moment. What was because I imagine you had some regulars that would go there.
Yeah.
What was the communication like when you couldn't go there? I imagine it was like, I want to leave them not knowing that.
I didn't get to go back. They didn't say we'll do the next few. I don't want to knock these people, because if they do listen to this, I love the 6 years we spent. I understand the reasons for stopping it. I have since asked to go back if there's any way they can do it, and they couldn't figure that out. I just felt lucky enough. There are a few people that I've seen at other ones, and I was saying, "Oh, how you doing?" I saw Zaya
on their way.
I saw them at Bethnal Green and that. And a few months ago, when I was doing the buses, there's a new thing called the homeless buses, and they have a doctor and a dentist and a hairdresser, and the guy come around the corner, and I've not seen this guy for before the pandemic, so it's a good 2.5 years. And it's just a thing that clicks here. I've got terrible memory. I forget my own kids' names a lot of the time. He walked around the guy, a big black guy, and he walked around the guy. I went, "Barrington, how you doing, mate?" And I'd remembered him from that, and he was blown away that I remembered his name, and we had a good laugh, and and we caught up. And then I got into the bus, and he's actually been helping them with sort of liaising with some of the homeless guys and encouraging them, say, "Look, come over to that bus, it's really good." So so I didn't lose all of them, but and I did one at a football soccer stadium, and then it was from East London, so a lot of them came, and they come to the soccer stadium, and I caught up with a few of the other guys that I hadn't seen for a long time. So it's
that's a beautiful thing to see, that they've made their way to find you again.
Yeah,
that it's that meaningful. That they'll coordinate whatever difficulty it is to transpo themselves to whatever to get to you. It's I don't know. It must be a meaningful feeling.
Yeah, it's nice to see. Sometimes there's guys who you've known for a long time, and you don't want to see them anymore. You want them to move on. No, not because they're annoying. I've had a few of them. I mean, trust me, people are people. There's good people, there's not so good people. So sometimes, but there has been, time to think, I'd love you to. The guy Zyron I just mentioned, is Mohawk, and he was a funny guy, and he used to say to me, "I really want to move up to Scotland," and it was a bit like that Goodwill Hunting thing. I used to think, one day I'm going to come and he won't be there. And they'll say, "He's gone to Scotland." And that thing at the Goodwill Hunting when he goes, one day I'm going to knock on the door and you're not going to be there. And,
make me cry.
Yeah. Yeah. So you do hope that they are going to move on. But I couldn't, and it's funny how you said about awkwardness and like you don't find this easy. I find this really easy, but then I find talking easy. Mm-hmm. But what I always think and imagine is with acting, I couldn't remember how do you learn those lines?
Well, it's funny, because you also have to do it for auditions, right? So you get a little practice because you have to turn those over pretty quickly. So you get a bit practiced, but you do notice how it is different. When the writing's good, you memorize it faster.
Right.
A lot faster.
Right.
Because you're tracking the logic easier. So it comes naturally. You're like, oh, that's what that person would say next. So it just flows.
Right.
And there's a kind of a pleasure to how they're playing back, how the characters might be playing back and forth. Yeah. There's a kind of pleasure to it. There's a musicality to it.
Yeah.
So it's easier when it's when the writing's really good and when you feel like the writer likes to write for that character.
Right.
It, for some reason, it comes very easily.
Yeah.
But I need to, every actor has different styles. So I like to memorize it kind of a few days in advance, forget about it, and then re-look at it
right.
the day of. So it's sort of it's in me in a, it's, you're recalling.
Yeah.
Versus trying to memorize. But like when we were filming Ozark, Jason Bateman has a photographic memory.
Really?
It's so annoying. He can memorize. Oh, he can memorize blocks of text, on the van ride from where our trailers are to where the set is.
Really?
So aggravating.
Yeah.
And then do it with all the nuances and the specificity as if you had been digesting it for a week. It's incredible. That's incredible. That's incredible.
Yeah. And annoying.
It's fucking annoying. It's bullshit. Yeah, it was really annoying.
Fuck you, Jason.
Fucking Jason. While he's directing and acting and producing 48 other things. Yeah, that was crazy to see. That was the first time I've ever seen somebody with that kind of
Yeah.
And then I tried it one day. I was like, you know what? He's such a good actor. I'm gonna try that one day. And I tried it, and then it was just I was sweating because I couldn't. Because I was like, I don't know if I'm gonna know the lines. What if? So then the stress of me of them saying rolling and action, and you're playing the part of somebody recalling the lines.
Yeah.
Versus a character's talking was stressed me out so much that I was like, I think that scene, my character just seemed really nervous when she didn't need to be nervous. You know what I mean? Why are you sweating?
It's a constipation face.
Exactly.
Because there's a natural thing for it, isn't it? My 4 kids growing up, they all did musical theatre. My youngest put a life to it because she had a little bit what you said about not having too much too quick. She was in Oliver at the West End.
Oh wow!
She'd done 2 runs. I mean, the chorus but she got hooked. Then she gave her whole life to it. School, stage school.
Yeah.
And then she graduated from stage school just as the pandemic hit.
Oh.
And everything stopped. And it just for 2 years there was nothing. And by the time it kicked off again, they was really concentrating on the new graduates. And this 2 years got left behind in limbo. It was really, and she ended up going working in a gym. But then I'll give her a full credit. she then just really worked hard at that, and she's become a personal trainer. And now she went on holiday to Thailand, and she went over she's in Australia now, and she's a PT.
Not Bora Bora.
You know, she was.
Remember, by the way, in the wedding, you were like, "My kid's going to Bora Bora," and you're like,
"Oh yeah, no, she skipped Bora Bora. Yeah, no, she skipped Bora Bora. Went straight.
She was actually meant to go to Bora Bora.
Yeah, she was going to go from there to Bora Bora and then come home, but she skipped that straight to Sydney, Bondi Beach, and she's got a job in a gym as a PT instructor. So yeah. So it's this, but they all growing up. But my son is just such a mimic, you know, and he's in recruitment now. He didn't follow it up, but he just can. Every song that he ever learned, he can just, if they say, "Oh, do you remember when we did so and so?" He just can blast out the whole song, every single word, and it can. You know, I can talk on stage to a few hundred people or 1,000 people about what I do without any, and they say, "Oh, can you do?" I say, "No, look, please, just let me talk. I'm all right." But then, if I had to learn something, we did a video for L'Oreal, and they gave me a script, and it's the most awful. I was like sitting there like that, talking like this. Yeah, we had haircuts for homeless, and in the end, they took me out of it, and they just put all their lovely images and just my voice in the background, because it was so. I was like that. It's amazing me.
For me, it's the other way around. Like if I have to give a speech or something, I'm stiff as a board, and then if I have script that I know, that I have to learn, which I need to learn it in advance, but I guess I can do it pretty quickly at this point. It's a muscle too. So, but yeah, no, I need the script
and the structure. And it's probably two sides of the brain, isn't it? That's maybe that we've got strengths in different parts of the brain, I suppose.
It must be, right? Because two different, like for instance, you know, Laura Linney and Jason Bateman on the same show, her process was very different from his. I mean, preparation process. I don't mean like on set, like it was all seamless and easy. They were very seamless and easy together on set. But like what they would do to prepare felt very different. And yet you arrive to a scene where it's a married couple, you know, deeply engaged with each other and very much in the same scene. So yeah, it must be that different brains are able to digest material very differently.
So what was your first experience of directing? Where did that happen?
So I had like by my late 20s, I had been working. I was lucky enough that when I went out and I started working that I was actually like became a working actor.
Brilliant.
And but I didn't really like a lot of the stuff that I was getting the opportunity to be in. Right. And it started to dawn on me that I wanted to have some say in what stories were being told. Or that maybe acting wasn't for me, which wasn't the case. But I was trying to make sense of it. And so I started like in my late 20s, I started to explore a lot of different things, from, you know, doing like a teaching program in Tanzania to, you know, going to social worker seminars and, you know, taking a college course. You know, how colleges have courses that you can take even if you're not a full-time student.
Right. Yeah.
Like the extracurricular kind of courses and stuff. So I would take a lot of that and was really searching for like, well, what else would I want to do? This is the only thing I've ever known that I want to do. And the more I started to do all these other things, the more I started to get introduced to people that aren't just in this LA, you know, acting yoga bubble. And and I started to love people's stories.
Yeah.
And I spent a long time volunteering at this one organization called Peace for Kids, an incredible organization in Los Angeles run by a guy named Zaid Gale, who became a dear friend of mine. And who was a big supporter in me getting my first film done. Anyway, I started to fall in love with people's stories. And at the same time, I just started to develop a hobby for photography.
Right.
And so then started to watch films that have a more of like almost like a photographic kind of photographic first perspective, like the works of Lynn Ramsey and Jane Campion and Lucrezia Martel. And I started to wonder, and I started to get inspired in a way that I had never thought of before. And so I thought, well, maybe I should go to college. Maybe film school would be right for me. And so I moved back to New York. I was in LA, and I moved back to New York to go to Columbia University and thank God they let me into their grad school, because I'd already lived on my own had a lot of living that I had done in the last 10, 12 years. So I was about 30. So I think if I were going to school with some undergrads, I think it wouldn't have been I think it would have felt where they are in their life and where I was in my life would have felt too different. So they let me into the grad program, and so I went to film school because I felt like everything I knew about acting I had sort of cobbled together, and I always felt a little bit like something was missing. Like, I want that foundation. I want to be a craftsman. And I think, I know people that were in the sort of the LA acting circuit sort of thought I was nuts because I was getting jobs. I was booking work. I was actually making money. I was young enough to have the naivete to think that the money will always be there. And it's not. So I just thought no, I need to go and I really want to do this. And I want to know my film ancestry. I want to know, I want to be a film nerd, and I want to have a voice. I want to have something to actually say. And the tools and to know how to use the tools to say it. So the first thing I directed was a short film that I needed to make to get to have a portfolio piece to apply for the film school. And it was all right. It was interesting to me how little I knew about directing, having been an actor.
Yeah.
But I cobbled something together that was okay. That was good. It was okay. It was good because the friends that I had join me were good.
Right.
So I'm glad for their support on that. But it was film school for me. That was kind of this incredible. It was really an incredible experience because I hadn't been in a school environment really since high school, and because I'd been working since then and living life and being out there on your own, this idea that wait a second, you're going to sit in a classroom and this expert is going to come into the room and deliver this lecture to you about the very thing that you want to know about was mind-blowing to me. So I ate it up. I was so hungry and excited to be in that environment, and also a structured environment, because my life had been so unstructured that I didn't even know I was missing any kind of structure.
Right.
So then here I have this structure. So for me, it was just such an exciting, thriving experience for me. And the first thing I directed that I felt like I had some command over the thing was a short film called Skin. That I'm to this day, even though it was about 10 years ago that I directed it, I feel really proud of it.
Yeah.
So that was the first thing. And then that was a student short film. And I got lucky that went into Sundance and got into these great festivals.
Yeah.
It gave me it gave me some encouragement.
Yeah.
To keep pursuing it.
That's quite a thing, isn't it? To go to have that sort of short as a student, but that to go to the Sundance and.
Yeah, it was it blew me away. I remember they called on Thanksgiving Day, and I was traveling to get to see a family member, and it was like Thanksgiving morning on the actual day. That's a Thursday for you Brits, yeah, they said your film got it, and I couldn't believe it, because so much of, and this is not a complaint, this is just a fact, that I'm in an industry where the supply far outweighs the demand. Everything that you do is a bit of a struggle, it's a bit of like a, I'm going down on that mat again, and again and again and again. And so that it kind of, first thing that I kind of did, being received by such a prestigious place and a meaningful place. I mean, a really meaningful place for independent filmmakers, not just prestigious, but actually really meaningful in the way that they help, in the programs that they give you, was just, I don't know. It was a really big deal for me. Yeah.
Massive at that stage.
Yeah, it was a big deal for me. And then the incredible thing about the Sundance world is that if you can chip your way into it, and you get to be kind of a person on the inside of it, they really hold their hands around you. Like they really, like from that, they asked me if I was writing any full scripts, and if I wanted to submit it to their, but they have a Sundance Labs program where they pick about eight people a year, and they give you incredible mentorship, and deadlines, and they're just, you're not alone trying to make this first film. You have the bench, like steps along the way, like they give you structure. They give you structure, and so that was incredible. So it was really because of the Sundance Film Institute that I was able to make my first feature film.
Yeah.
Because I got to like flow on their river,
Yeah. Yeah.
And go from this to that. Like, so from the screenwriting program, they have you do a rewrite, and then you send in your rewrite. And if you get selected for that, then you get to go to the director's lab. And the director's lab is like, 6 weeks in Robert Redford's mountains.
Really?
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah, he has like acres and acres and acres and acres and acres, and he set up like a little like campus, and so you go there and you eat incredible food, and you have like fireside chats, and you put up scenes. You bring actors out with you, and for the director's lab, you put up scenes and you film them, and then really incredible advisors shoot them down, and then you cry. And then you're like, I'll never be good at this. And then your friends will like, buck you up. And, some of my dearest friends in my life now came from that program. Yeah. And then when you're done with that, they're like, all right, well, send us a new draft. Like let's rework it to the next stage. And you can submit yourself for the composers labs. You can start to think about how you want, and the sound mix labs. You can start to think about how you want your film to sound and how you want it to like how you want the score. Like, would you want a score? Or do you not want a score? What would that score be like? I mean, it's just the most incredible experience. Yeah, I don't know. I'm so deeply grateful to them. Yeah. And then because I was making a film that wasn't very commercially oriented, then they have a program called the Catalyst Program, which like allows you to pitch your film to financiers that are more interested in films that can't get made.
Yeah.
In the commercial marketplace. Because I spent before I got into Catalyst, I had spent like 2 years trying to put it out, like even after the Sundance sort of stamp of approval, I still couldn't make it in the Hollywood industry world. It just wasn't commercial enough. So then they said, "Hey, you should apply," and they kind of keep their eye on you, and so they said you should apply to this Catalyst program, and so that's where I found all of my my money. But it's funny because it really became relationships with investors that like gave a shit about the kind of film that you're making. So it wasn't just money; it was actually like the people behind that money that became real collaborators. So it was kind of a different experience.
I thought there must be, because, you know, business people are business people.
Yeah.
And so they must have had a passion, because if it's not commercially viable, then it doesn't, you know, it doesn't matter to them. So these people, they must have had that, the money to use, but also the passion for what you're trying to do, which is quite rare, isn't it, in this world?
Right. Like the old school idea of like having like a benefactor, you know, like a painter having like somebody that just sort of like, puts them up kind of thing.
Yeah.
That doesn't exist now.
No.
And I mean, look, they wouldn't have been upset if the movie made money and they got their money back.
No, of course. Yeah. I mean, yeah.
But yeah, they wanted to be a part. They want to participate in the arts.
Yeah.
And so so that was really, really great. So that was kind of my, I don't know. Did I just start blabbing?
No. Because I find it fascinating, because I didn't know any of that existed. You know, I know Robert Redford, the actor, and I know the Sundance, and he had links, but I didn't know to the extent that he'd invested himself into that, which is incredible. As soon as you say Robert Redford, I think The Way We Were. And I've seen The Way We Were so many times, and I cry every fucking time.
He came to visit every lab. He would ride his motorcycle. Literally, he would ride his motorcycle. His hair, flap, 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 flappy, flap. And,
painfully good-looking man. Even at older age, painfully good-looking man, yeah.
And I just like, I remember he introduced himself to me at one of like because you eat it's all together, you dine, like all your meals are together. And Quentin Tarantino was one of our advisors.
Really love Quentin.
Cool
Quentin, guaranteed. I love him.
Like really cool people, really exciting people. Tobias Lindholm was one of my advisors, incredible guy, who was the writer of that incredible movie with Mads Mikkelsen, Another Round.
Right. Yeah.
Oh, that's a good movie. Anyway, so, what was I going to say? Yeah, I couldn't get past how good his hair was. Like I couldn't speak back to him because I was just like, wow, your hair. Very good. So good. Like I had that kind of moment where I was like, oh, I'm a fucking idiot. God, I'm a fucking idiot. And then he gave me a really great piece of advice as director, because then he came and workshopped, like, so then you're putting up scenes and then these advisors will come and drop in on your set.
Right.
And watch you like a fishbowl. It's weird, but great. And then they'll tell you like, hey, I feel like you would have gotten stronger results if you put the camera here, or if you spoke to the actor that way, or whatever. And so there was one moment where I was putting up a scene, and the only place for me to sit outside of the camera view and the equipment was in this very tiny bedroom. And so Robert Redford came to join me where I had my monitor looking at the scene. And he came and there was nowhere else to sit but like right next to me on this little tiny bed. So it was like me and Robert Redford just sitting on this little tiny bed, sharing this tiny monitor. And he gave me a tip. And it's something I think about now all the time, which is, he said, you know, when you're directing an actor, give one thing per take. Don't overwhelm your actor with like, you know, too many notes. And I think about that. I think about that sometimes when I'm giving my kid something to do.
Yeah.
You know, like if you give and do this and do that and do that and do that, nothing's going to get done.
No.
But if you make it one clear thing.
Yeah.
Anyway, it was meaningful to me. And, but that was really cool. And then I was pregnant during the labs.
Right.
And so then when I went to the composer's lab, I was really pregnant. I was like really, really pregnant. And Robert Redford came to that, and he came up to me and he said, "May I say your pregnancy seems to be progressing beautifully." He gave me a hug. I called my mom and I told her, and she was so mad. She was like, "That should have been my moment with Robert Redford." Like, that's so not fair.
Yeah.
Don't I at least get Robert Redford?
He encompasses all the generations, though, doesn't he? He's just been doing it for so long. He encompasses so many generations of people and fans, and you know. But to me, he's the way we were, and his hair looked.
His hair is still so good. It's ridiculous.
And Barbara Streisand, I've got the biggest crush. I've had the biggest crush since I was like 15.
Oh my God.
A Star is Born. When she was in A Star is Born, I was in lust for years over that.
Oh my God. She's incredible in that film.
Yeah, she's just
gentle. I mean, talk about
gentle. I made my kids watch it, you know, and then you know.
I actually wanted to rewatch. I haven't seen that. I haven't seen that since I was really young, and I didn't understand it.
Yeah, it's brilliant.
I was like, when is she going to start singing "Hello, Dolly"? Like, I didn't get it. Yeah. I was too young. So I haven't actually seen it since I was too young to watch it. So I actually really want to watch it. Have you watched that recently?
But it was only last year, and I got the girls.
Really?
I said, look, you've got to watch this film, and because my other daughter, she's a researcher in TV programs.
Oh.
She does a lot of the reality stuff. Have you got an American one? Is it Too Hot to Handle? It's a big American one. Well, they're all too good looking, and they all make love everywhere and cheat on each other, and yeah. But she had to. She loved it. She got flown to the Turks and Caicos Islands for 4 months, and there was just her and one of the contestants in her villa. But she said about the long hours as well. You know, it was incredibly long hours, and you know, I didn't realise how much these guys worked on that sort of thing. You know. But I said, look, you love film. I said, there's some films you're going to have to, you know, she's not in film, but she's in TV. But, you know, I said, there's some films you've got to see. And I said, Yentl.
Yentl was one of them?
I said, you've got to see Yentl. You know, it's like, you know.
Just when I thought I couldn't like you anymore. Tell your daughter, you got to see Yentl.
Yeah. Well, she's gay. She's come out as gay as. She came back from. She went to university straight and came back gay, and I got her for her birthday. I got her a pride dildo. And she opened this. I'll send you the video. She opened this, and then there's this, because that was my way of saying, "I accept you, my darling," and I love.
Amazing. That's amazing. Oh my God.
Yeah.
Can she use it though?
Well, I suppose, yeah, I like to think, yeah, on a girlfriend, yeah.
You're like, oh God.
This means a lot to me, this one. My dad gave me this. Yeah, maybe it's a symbolic thing in the bedroom, I don't know.
Just should sit on her desk.
Yeah, a paperweight. It's a paperweight. But there's certain things, that they have to see, isn't there? And I grew up loving film. Well, one of the odd ones I loved, there were certain films that changed me as I went along. Way We Were, Star Is Born, but Rocky Horror Show, the Rocky Horror Picture Show.
Oh yeah.
I was a sort of I was this sort of a hormonal young boy of 14, 15, and then it was just everyone had stockings and suspenders on. I went to see it 5 times the first week.
Oh man, I showed that one to my kid during the pandemic.
Yeah,
and because she got really into like weird musicals.
Yeah,
she got another weird musical, The Boyfriend. You might like that if you've never seen that. That's a weird musical. If you ever I'd like to do mushrooms, but not do mushrooms, just watch that movie.
Oh, right. It's one of those.
Yeah, it's so trippy dippy weird. It's a musical with Twiggy starring in it.
Really?
Yeah.
Well, The Boyfriend, yeah, of course. Yeah,
The Boyfriend.
Yeah. I was thinking of a new thing, but Twiggy was in The Boyfriend, yeah.
Yeah, and Tommy Tunes.
Yeah.
Anyway, that one's really weird. And so she really liked that. I was just watching that on my own, and she came into the room, and it wasn't inappropriate. I mean, it was weird, but it wasn't there wasn't anything I had to censor her from. Oh. So she got really into it, and then she wanted to watch it again and again and again. And so then she was like, I want another musical and another musical. And so then we watched, Bugsy Malone and, and
I want to be a boxer.
Yeah, that's the baby face. That's the baby face. And I am baby face. And then I was like, Rocky Horror Picture Show, will the sexuality of it, because she was only like 5.
Yeah.
Sexuality of it sort of go over her head, or will it feel too sort of sensory overload for her? And she loved it. It's so weird, but yeah, that one is so, Tim Curry is, I mean, I'm so, I don't know. I'm so overwhelmed by Tim Curry.
Yeah.
I really am.
I do a mean, when we meet again, when I come to New York, I do a mean, it's my party piece. My rendition of A Sweet Transvestite is, I'll put it out there myself. It's pretty good.
I'll only watch it if you wear the outfit.
I'll do that. It's not a problem to me at all. Wouldn't be the first time I've had it on. Bit more difficult now. I don't drink, but it was always I never adverse to throwing that on at any time, as long as everyone else is joining in. But the other one, Sweet Charity, what a great, Shirley MacLaine.
God,
I know. Guys and Dolls and
Guys and Dolls is a funny one because when you rewatch it, I remember when I was young and I watched that because again, this was the kind of stuff I watched with my dad. Yeah. I was so in love with Marlon Brando.
Oh, yeah.
So in love with Marlon Brando in that movie. And then when I rewatched it, I recently was so uncomfortable watching. I was so uncomfortable for him. He seemed so uncomfortable in it.
Yeah.
And then the Dulce de Leche scene is just problematic in all sorts of post-Me Too ways and everything. I'm just not sure this one fully holds up. But
no, a lot of them don't. then there was another period. I've got to go back to the early one though. I was 14 and my sister let me in the theatre through the fire escape because I was too young, and I saw The Exorcist.
That's amazing. Seriously?
Yeah, I was 14. I saw The Exorcist at the pictures. And that always holds me as, I mean, I didn't sleep for 3 months.
Jacob's Ladder. Do you remember the movie Jacob's Ladder?
Oh, yeah.
I snuck in Jacob's Ladder, and
right. For goodness sake, you know, they've got age limits on these things for a reason. I know now. But the thing what I try and tell people is that I was born in that time, and when I think it was in the early 70s, The Exorcist came out, and William Friedkin was such a magician because the things he did were not doable until many decades later. And even now, they would only be doable with CGI, and he had none of that. And the things he created, and people were still watching Hammer House of Horror. You know, they were still watching Christopher Lee as Dracula and Peter Cushing as Frankenstein. And then all of a sudden, this guy come and done this.
Yeah.
Light years away from what it was. You know, the things to get the breath in the visual breath. They surrounded a room with freezers, industrial freezers.
Is that right?
Yeah. So that when they were in there, they could. You could see the breath.
I have that right.
Yeah.
Even now, the CGI breath, it doesn't work.
No.
You know, he, as a matter of fact, is now in pre-production on a new movie.
What, William Friedkin?
Yeah.
Really?
He's remaking the Kane Mutiny.
Really?
That Bogart film.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow.
Crazy.
That's
When
something.
I read that, I was just like, what?
No disrespect to the man. I didn't even know he was still alive.
I know. I think he is like in his I think he is close to 90 or something.
Yeah, I was going to say, he must be. Yeah. Because when we were there, Mark, the photographer, who took a lot of the photographers on the beach day and at the wedding, the black and white stuff, he worked with William Friedkin. He came on my podcast.
Oh, really?
Yeah, Mark, and I didn't even know it because I'm terrible. I'm not a really lazy podcaster. I don't do research. I like to have it all as fresh. I like it to be as fresh to me as it is to anyone else listening. And then, you know, and I only was speaking to him because he'd come and took photos of Lena when we was at the Mission, and she come and cut hair with me. And then he said,
she's a hair cutter. I bet
she's a closet hairdresser. She's, you know.
Yeah, I have a feeling she's a really.
There was no holding her back.
Right.
He took some great images, and he's a lovely, lovely man. He had the cane at the wedding. He was walking. He had a bad hip, and he was walking around with a cane. You will get him. I'll send you a picture.
Yeah.
Yeah, don't do your constipated face. It's not a good look.
Getting to the age where I need glasses, where I'm starting to do I do
that, and I've got an F-off face because when I'm concentrating, I'm doing this, and sometimes I'm thinking.
I have that too, but I have two of them.
Yeah. So you've got a passion. You've got a real passion then for directing. I think it's overtaken your love of acting, isn't it? Really, it seems to me.
You know, it's funny because if I could paint the perfect picture, it would be to do both. It would be to have them in balance because I don't have the feeling that when I started out acting and when I found directing, I said, no, this is actually it. This is actually it, and forget about acting. I didn't have that feeling. In fact, the more I directed, the more I was like, oh, that's what I was missing as an actor. I needed to just hold that a little bit longer. I needed to have more awareness of the camera in that moment, like where that camera was. So in a way, one feeds the other.
Yeah.
But it's tricky. It's a tricky balance for me at the moment because I think until you've sort of really proven yourself, and unfortunately proven yourself on the business side just means did your movie make money?
Yeah.
until you've really proven yourself, it's hard to flow back and forth.
Right. Okay.
It's a little bit like, because we as just human beings, and then certainly in that industry, really want to put you in a box.
Yeah, of course.
We all just do just to get through our day, right? That person belongs in that context. Yeah. That person belongs in that context. But so it's a little bit like I'm feeling like in this moment of like I haven't quite earned my right to flow between the two, or I haven't paid my dues to flow between the two. So I'm in a little bit of a challenging moment. It's not so easy to not just sort of pick one and run with it.
Yeah.
It's not so easy to not pick one and run with it.
Yeah.
I'm a little bit hand tied behind my back by not doing that.
Yeah.
And yet I really love them
both. Yeah.
And I think that they inform each other really well. One thing I don't have too much of an interest in is like directing myself, where I'm the actor in it. And Jason actually said something funny about that because he directs a lot of the Ozarks.
Yeah, I saw that.
Like for you, you're the lead actor on the show. Like, what's that like for you to direct yourself? Because for me, that's not why I got into directing. I like the conversation with the director. And he said, well, I do too. And I also am aware that I take up time by watching the take in between. Like, okay, now before we do another take, I'm going to go watch the take that we just filmed because I wasn't behind the monitor watching it because I was doing it. Right. Yeah. So he said, so on the one hand, I feel bad, like breaking that flow and taking that time. On the other hand, I save a lot of time by already knowing what bullshit my lead actor is going to bring me today.
Did I see that Laura directed one as well? Did Laura?
Yeah, she and Jason are two of like the top directors I've ever worked with. I mean, just really? In terms of just in terms of like really feeling like you got to a level of a scene, or you got to do something with the scene that you hadn't expected when you were working on it at home, and where you felt engaged in a really great way, and then also the outcome, the shots, the choice, the progression of shots, everything, and just the experience on set. Laura was incredible. She comes from such a theater background that she's so into preparation, which is really exciting because in the TV world, I mean, you don't rehearse, you just show up on set and you're supposed to do the thing you do. There's not really a lot of character conversation. So when I went back for the last season, I hadn't been in it for like a year, and I had the first day jitters kind of feeling.
Yeah.
And because it was also in the pandemic, so it was like, I hadn't shaved my pits in a year. You know what I mean? Like it was just like I'm like peeking through like a forest. And she was like, she said to me, because my character had become sober.
Right.
And she said, she called me like 2 months before and said, I want every single line that you read to be through of every script to be through the lens of recovery.
Right.
And all of my own personal anxiety of first day jitters just all of a sudden got grounded into an actual task. So it was like that Robert Redford, now bringing it full circle. It was like that Robert Redford thing of like, she gave me one thing to do, one crystal clear thing that then informs it in all these incredible ways.
Yeah.
And so that was very meaningful. She's incredible. I hope she directs more. I hope she directs more. She's an incredible director. And she's a nerd. So she's like, and I say that in a good, I love nerds. So she's like, she knows so much. She's so interested. She's so interesting. She does her homework. And yeah, she and Jason are two people. I'm like, I just feel really lucky that I got to work with them.
Yeah.
Like, I feel really lucky.
The universe is kind sometimes, isn't it?
Yeah. And Mark Menchaca, I would put in that category.
We've got to talk about Ozark now because, the fact that we both know Mark as well, and he spoke to me about when he came on the podcast, he was saying about his role in it, which is the biggest shocker. I mean, when what a great storyline when, him as the hillbilly, like macho cowboy gets turned by the guy. Yeah, and it was brilliant. The moment, and because his mum was at the wedding, wasn't she? And they're lovely people, and they were saying to his mum, "Whatever you do, don't watch episode 7." We kept joking. I kept pulling her leg about that, and it's an incredible, but what an incredible series. So I'm going to do some spoilers. So if anyone, because you must have bloody seen it by now. Even I've only just finished, and I was well late to the party. Life's been hectic, but we're going to talk, because you was in it so strongly that at the beginning. How did you come by getting the role? How did that come about initially?
Me?
Yeah.
Well, very luckily for me, the show was cast by a woman who was at the wedding named Alexa Fogo.
Right.
I got a chance to meet her. She's an extraordinary casting director. She cast The Wire, The Deuce. I mean, she like everything that's been great at HBO. She cast.
Yeah.
And she doesn't put people in boxes.
Right.
And that was lucky for me because the box that I had gotten myself into was a kind of a very sort of mainstream television style that, look, I'm grateful for it. It paid for my film school.
Yeah.
But it wasn't a style that was particularly stimulating to me creatively. So it was funny that I got kind of locked into this box a bit. And she just didn't see me there. So she just let me audition for it. And then from what I understand, really supported my getting the role. So not just let me audition, but kind of saw me in it and pushed for me to be in it. So I'm really grateful to that because that's unusual. So I auditioned for it, and then it's a bit hazy now, but and then I remember they brought me back in, and I read with and I met Jason and Chris Mundy, who's the showrunner and one of the most incredible showrunners I've ever worked with. So like in television, the showrunner, do you know what the showrunner is? Like the showrunner is basically like the director. Like they're like the person that has like in film, the director or the writer director is the person that's really kind of holding the entire vision.
Right.
Together.
Right.
In TV, that's the showrunner.
Right. Okay.
So they're bringing the directors that are coming in together. They're making sure that they're united in a kind of a clear, they're all telling the same story.
Right.
A clear vision.
Yeah.
And they're the head of the writer's room. And anyway, so Chris Mundy is this incredible guy because he's so unassuming and he's so kind and he's so like salt of the earth, Midwestern kind of a guy. And he's just one of the nicest people I've ever met. And then I would read these scripts. Like I was like, wait, what happened? Like what? Like with the pregnant, wait, why is the baby, where's the mom, where's the baby? Like what? Like that kind of thing. And I was just like, how does this come from this guy who's like truly the loveliest person I've ever met. Yeah, I don't even know where I was going with that, except, so he was in the room, and it was just a really nice room to be in. They made it a really nice room. And Jason obviously has a celebrity around him. So it could have easily been an intimidating room to be in. And he made it very comfortable. So that was really cool. And that was it. I mean, I think it was just that. It was just the first audition and the callback with Jason and Chris.
But your character was great, wasn't it? I mean, like we chatted, and I said I was actually quite attracted to the character.
Yeah.
Yeah. Do you remember? I said to you when we was at the wedding, I said I was quite attracted to the character. Like all respect your husband says it wasn't a come on, but it was like she had that sort of like grassroots. Dirty girl, bar owner, been around the block a bit, earthy lady, But
it was nice filming that too, because we shot that show in Georgia, and we shot it all over. Like, so production stages were just outside of Atlanta, and then the birdhouse was on one lake, and then the Blue Cat was on another lake, and so they would clump all the Blue Cat resort scenes together, just from a production logistics standpoint, because it was a little bit further away. So once you're moving the entire crew, you want to shoot all the scenes there at the same time, because it's just obviously a time suck to be, moving locations is the biggest time suck. So you group things together in terms of locations when a show is spread out like that. So when I would go to film there, I would just like get an Airbnb on the lake.
Right.
Like so close to it that I could actually like canoe to work.
Right.
So that was really nice, because it was my first time that I had like lake life.
Yeah.
I got to like have a swim in the lake and then go to work. It was crazy. It was really nice. It was really, really nice.
There was a great relationship that you had with Jason when they were in the show, that you always kept thinking, are they gonna get it on? Are they not? There was quite a lot of tension, wasn't there, between the two of you? It seemed like.
Well, it was nice. I said to him one time, I was like, should I be offended that we're like not getting it on? And he said, and he actually said something really, really interesting and so thoughtful and so smart. He said, maybe this is his way of saying he's not that into me, but he said the only thing I have going for me, or as Marty Bird, like the only thing my character has going for me is that I care about my family, is that I'm doing this for my family.
Yeah.
Even though my wife cheated on me, I'm doing this for my family. Like otherwise I'm a horrible person.
Yeah.
I'm a really horrible person, and I'm putting my kids in grave danger. So if we don't really truly believe that the only reason why is to be able to get them out, that I'm a protector of my family, that I'm not, stuffing the bartender on the side. Like we have to hang on to that side of him. Yeah. Otherwise we're just sort of watching moral depravity. Like we're not watching. Like we'll lose our connection to him.
Yeah,
that makes every audience.
Yeah, makes sense. And then
that makes sense, but damn, no.
You nearly. And we because the thing is, it went through, and it was 4 seasons, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Because I when I saw you at the wedding, I just started to catch up with the beginning of that season. And then I said to you, look, no spoilers. I need to watch the rest of it when I get back. And I managed to get back. It was really, I hit the ground running when I got back. The project, the charity, I was all over the place, but I managed to get it finished. And when I spoke to you I was in tears, because when you all come, it was at the last episode, and you all come back. So look, switch off now if you haven't seen it. What's wrong with you if you haven't? But you know, and that bit where she sort of dream scene where she goes back and you're all around the fire and Mark's singing. I was crying like a baby. You know, it was just like, you know, and how they wrote you back in and the way your last bit of it was, I thought it was fantastic how they brought you back.
You know, what's funny is that the day that they were shooting all the Langmores back to like have that fire scene, we were all staying in the same hotel.
Right.
And so I wasn't in that scene, but I was like on the day before I was working. So we were all at the hotel at the same time. And we all just kind of found ourselves together in the lobby, restaurant, bar, whatever. And we just had this really great night of reconnection because I hadn't been there for all of season 3.
Yeah.
And so it was just, I don't know, it was a really beautiful night back together. And like that feeling was the feeling like back at the hotel that, you know, Chris Mundy and Jason and Laura, you know, all the people that sort of create the tone of the show and the set. Yeah. They created that feeling for us to be just hanging out at the hotel, restaurant, bar, whatever, you know. Real kind of community feeling.
Yeah.
I was really bummed that we weren't doing more. It was one of the best jobs I've had.
Yeah. I was talking to Mark because he was saying like he's had some fantastic roles, but they keep bumping him off. Then he would love to have him, like, to be able to come back into it later. And in Homeland, he got bumped off, and he would love to have been able to come back later. Yeah. There's something about him that people want to kill him, but
then they're like, "Oh, we missed that guy. Let's bring him back."
Let's bring him back.
How many ghosts has he played?
I hate dream scenes. I really hate, you know, the worst of all, Bobby Ewing coming back in Dallas, and, you know, all these dream scenes. But that one, the way they'd done it was so class.
Yeah.
And so moving.
That beautiful scene where she's sitting on top of the trailer and talking to her brother.
Yeah, I know. And that stuff.
That broke my heart. That was
really, really good, wasn't it? No, it was really. So hats off to them all. You know, everyone involved. As a fan, it was normally they sort of sometimes it just dogs it a bit at the end.
Yeah,
it's forced. You know, Game of Thrones. The last one seemed forced, and everyone went up in arms.
Right.
This was just like perfect ending to it. I thought.
Yeah.
Because you couldn't have an happy. How can you have an happy ending? You can't have a happy ending.
Right.
Because it's too.
It was a perfect ending that the innocent became corrupted. Right.
Yeah. That was the thing. Because in the end, how could you not become corrupted in something like that? Because life corrupts a lot of the time, you know. But no, it was really fantastic. So, as we wrap up, what's your future? You know, what do you want to come now? What's your next thing that you really want to do?
So I've just written over these last couple of years. I've written a TV series and I've written a script, and I'm just starting to put them out now.
Right.
And then I have fragments of like 3 other scripts that I feel like I'd have to make after I made a script that had that actually made some money.
Yeah.
But so I think the thing that's really on my mind is I've spent the last couple of years really just kind of in my own little room, you know, at my own little desk, writing in this kind of very quiet, kind of isolated space. And so now I'm making that transition to like now putting the stuff out there and getting, you know, trying to get money for it and all of that. And so it's a strange, I'm in a strange transitional place of like moving from this very quiet place where you're kind of creating stuff in quiet to now saying, okay, now I'm ready to start shopping it around. And it's a strange feeling, but hopefully I won't stay in that transitional space too long.
No.
But things take a long time, you know, things just take a long time. And it took me a while to be okay with that.
Yeah.
To be like, well, you know what, for some people it goes very fast and sometimes it doesn't. And most of the time it doesn't. And that's okay. And when I lose sight of that, the only thing that brings me any kind of like relief is just getting back to generating work.
Yeah, of course.
Because you can spend a long time spinning out on like, how do I pitch this? Who do I network it to? Who do I this and that? And it's so unfulfilling. Like it's such a not the fun part of the job, at least for me, that I have to like tap back into like, and now I've written something, and like the actual act of like creating something is pumps you back up.
Yeah.
But so getting the things that I've written made is sort of on the forefront of my mind right now.
And one last thing, I don't really want to go without this because things pop into my mind when I'm talking to someone. And you said so many times throughout our chat, you said the word structure.
Have I?
Yeah. Why do you think is structure so important to you?
So, you know, it's funny. So in my 20s, I got diagnosed with ADHD.
Wow.
And you know, it's a funny thing. I feel funny talking about it because it's become such a pop culture word also.
Yeah.
And so I see in the moments where sort of an external structure is given to me, how, and I don't mean given to me in a total hand-holding sense, but just in the fact that, oh, you have a deadline and something's due.
Yeah.
And there's accountability for that being due. Somebody's waiting for that to arrive in their inbox or whatever.
Right.
That those things are really, they're really important to me.
Yeah.
And I need them because without them, I can spin out a little bit because I don't have a job and I think actually fewer and fewer people do have a job, right, where there isn't a kind of a freelance nature to it. But as a freelancer, if you will, the project that you're pitching is only as good as the work you put into it.
Yeah.
And so without kind of giving yourself some like external deadlines, tomorrow can become next month, can become next year very easily.
Yeah, of course.
And then it doesn't feel good, for me at least, because I'm a person that thrives on feeling like I'm making things.
Right.
So I suppose just for my own self to feel good, you know, to feel like I'm moving things forward. If I don't have structure, I try to find anything to apply for, like something that requires an application that I have to finish that draft of that thing to apply, like all those kinds of external dates.
Yeah.
That may be relatively arbitrary. They're really helpful to me.
Yeah. It makes sense to me. Yeah.
Because with acting, it's very structured. You know what I mean? Acting is like, you have to show up at this time. And if you are literally a minute late, there's an AD calling a second AD, calling a second AD, calling the hotel. You know what I mean? Like, it's, you know, you show up and they're like, here's the clothes you're wearing. You sit in a chair while we do your makeup. You know, you need to know your lines and you need to know them at this time for this scene on this day. Like it's very, so I don't think I even realized to what degree I needed structure because I was in such a structured kind of system.
Yeah.
And so then when you're saying, I'm going to go off and write my own thing, and it's like, well, when do you want to finish it? I don't know, when you want to. Like, it's like, well, then you hit a rough patch, or you don't feel like writing, or what you're writing sucks. It just becomes next month very, very quickly.
Of course.
And that feels like a bummer. And then you get bummed out, and then you lose confidence and what. So anyway, so that's why I guess, and then because if I'm learning about myself, that if I'm not like really into it, it's very hard for me to stay engaged like most people. And then for some people, really hard to stay engaged like me. And, so yeah, keeping that, like, there's a deadline, there's a time that has to be handed in, just push through the bits you don't like.
Yeah.
That's my structured word salad. I just threw at you.
Okay, it jumped out at me, and I was like, "There's something really important there," but the ADHD thing, my son-in-law's got ADHD, and it's a definite thing that people need, but so many of us need. We don't want it, but we need it, and it's so important to a lot of people. It's important to me. I've got deadlines and things, and that, my sister's my structure.
Really?
Because she works for me in the charity, and she, because I'm an ideas person, and I'm an action person, so I just want to go out and do it, or have the ideas of what we're going to do or where we're going to do it, and then she's the one who comes, right, and she sort of brings me back. Right. You've got to do this, and who you got to do.
What are the things that we need to do to actually see that idea through? She's got
the lists, and it's like, well, wait, what one have you got to do first? And all, like
right.
Otherwise, I'm just chaotic. I've got a chaotic mind, chaotic person. Probably like because I'm an addict, and you need something to ground you sometimes. And my wife is so grounding. When you've met her, she's like the most easy going.
I think Matt, my husband, and your wife play similar roles for us.
I think so, definitely.
Because he's definitely like, he'll help me break down the bits of the day and be like, all right, well then, so that seems like you'd have to do that before you do that, and I'm like, oh right, yeah, of course. Because I can get. Yeah, I can get lost, and then I can ruminate about that, and then you can shame cycle spiral into the thing that you didn't do. You know what I mean? So.
Julie's always saying, "Oh, Stuart, it's in your head. It's in your head. None of this is happening."
Right.
People don't think that about you. You're not. It's just you imagine all of it.
Yeah, you ruminate, and then yeah.
Well. Jordan, I think this is what I love doing podcasts, because I think I know someone, but then having this hour with someone, you really feel like you come away and you just feel like you're just clearer about who they are and what makes them tick, and they always come away with some common ground where you feel closer to someone.
Yeah.
So, I've really enjoyed it today.
Likewise. And also I feel like, I'll go away and be like, oh man, but I didn't get to ask you all those questions. Like I wanted to ask you about, and maybe you can tell me what episodes you talk about these on. I wanted to ask you about like, what gave you the idea to start the podcast, spun off of the work that you do. Where did the podcast come from? What was that like to start up? And
The podcast really simply was the fact that I was asked to be on a few podcasts because of my story. So then once I was a guest on some podcasts, I thought, I am meeting so many people. But originally, the very first idea was I wanted to talk to my guests. But they proved to be, I tried a few, they proved to be so vulnerable and so chaotic that I couldn't really get a proper conversation. There was this really fine line of exploitative that I didn't exploit them for entertainment or, so, but then quickly I moved over to the people who work in like my team leaders or work in the centres. I meet some amazing, wonderful people.
Yeah.
People don't know who they are. They don't know their stories. They don't, And then I've been also lucky enough, because of the profile we've managed to get, is to have, wonderful, well-known people like yourself and Lena and Mark. And, I had the Duchess of York on.
Really?
Yeah. Bella Freud, the designer. So I've had some great people, but there is always a common denominator. They all interest me, and it's I'm a selfish person. This isn't for everyone who wants to listen. This is me. I talk to people I'm interested in about what I'm interested in, and if I'm interested in people, you can't go and do the work I do, the people I meet without having a love and an interest for your fellow human beings.
Yeah. I particularly loved the episode of and now I'm sorry to say I'm clouding on her name. The woman that had that breakup that sort of triggered ride down into a kind of into addiction and
recently that's Denise, I think.
Found herself writing.
Yeah, just a girl. Yeah,
just a girl. Thank you.
Yeah. She's incredible woman. And we're working on something I can't speak about in a moment because it's to do with women who are in danger. So I can't give the specifics, but even with everything else going on, she's working on something she wants me to help her with. And there's a lot of that. It started off with homeless people, but then it quickly went into women's refuge. I had a girl on Monday, and my daughter went for it. My daughter had a terrible abusive relationship. She was only 17, and I met this girl on Monday, and she was out, say girl, she's probably in her sort of mid-30s, I think, and she was in a refuge, and she was, become somewhere she was safe. But this guy had he'd beaten her so badly. But what really got me, I don't know why it got me, but she had bite marks all over her. And these bite marks, but I'm not talking just like, I'm talking bite marks, the skin had broken and there's the scars. And you could see the bite, and she said to me, she showed me her arm and told me she had this sort of solid mass where the bite had bitten and broken the muscle, and it's the thought that there's people out there who have to go through all this and there's not the help for them.
Yeah.
So what we can do, and I think I did put it on my Instagram, and it wasn't, why I put it on the Instagram was how I was feeling, because normally I try and protect myself, but I felt so awful. I was blow drying her hair and I had tears coming down my face because I was thinking of my daughter, I was thinking of her, and this became the most important blow dry that I've ever done in my life. I was so invested. I wanted her to look and feel so important to me that she felt so good about herself. And she did. She had a smile on her face, and when she left and she come up and it's something, sometimes they actually go up and they come back and they put a little bit of lippy on or something, and they come and go, look, I look really good now, don't I? They want to show you what you've done almost,
Right.
So it's definitely...
Well, because it's more than an external thing, right? You've put them back in touch with a reminder of a self that they lost touch with inside of themselves, right? That is like, oh, actually, it might not be as out of reach as I thought, or maybe I don't have to give up on that person inside of me.
Yeah.
Maybe they're not gone.
No, they're not. We reveal their authentic self. And sometimes we've got sessions, we work with street working girls who are very hard, got a very hard exterior. Yeah. A little bit of music goes on and we have and gradually, then you see the real person.
It comes out.
Yeah, they're kids. They're big kids. They're my daughter's ages. Yeah. So, but they're like middle-aged women. They've been through the mill. Yeah. So if we can just make them feel better about themselves, even for temporarily, they just know someone cares. That's the thing. They just know someone cares. But I love doing it. I get more from it than I give. So and I can't wait to come and see you guys. I'm going to come over
Yeah, you and Matt have a lot. And
me and Matt, I definitely want to join him in some of just see what he's doing. And
yeah, when he was he's a doctor that works in crisis settings and Doctors Without Borders and Rikers, and all that, and he described that same kind of moment where, not same kind of moment, but a similar moment where an incarcerated person would just say to him something like, "Oh, I really like your shirt. That's a nice shirt." And I would say, like, "Well, what's that moment about?" And he would say, because, the person's in to visit the doctor within Rikers, and he will say, "I think they just want a regular moment."
Yeah.
Like, I think they just want, they just want to talk about the weather.
Yeah.
Because it's like a reminder that you're human.
Yeah.
You're just like a human being having a chat about the weather.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, same.
Well, I think it's extraordinary what you do, and I feel silly having spent so much time talking about myself. Please don't. Because
I wanted to know. People want to know. So they've heard about me.
You got enough of this guy.
So that's the whole point. There'd be some people who didn't know, all of that stuff about, the Sundance, the place, and all of that process, and it's interesting, and people do want to know. And you're a lovely person. I want to know about you.
Thank you. Well, this is great. I miss you guys already.
Yeah.
Come visit us. Come stay with us.
Yeah, I will. I'll come over. I'm looking to come over early next year, and I'm hoping
There's
to
a
do
Pokemon bunk bed with your name on it.
Thank you. I hope it's a big one and with a strong base.
We might have to do some reinforcing.
That's the one. Well, thank you so much for your time, and love to the family, and keep doing what you're doing.
Thank you. You too.
See you later.
Bye.